Ladies and gentlemen, it's Wednesday evening. And so naturally, what do you have on Wednesday evening? We've got Luke Close live on the era. We're talking college football. I know it's June 18th. We're right smack in the middle of the dog days of summer. But nonetheless, it's still college football time. It's never too early to start breaking stuff down. And tonight, we've got two teams that I feel like they mirror each other in a lot of ways. So it's kind of why I strategically pair them together. We're talking Texas A&M and Miami. And so both teams get quote unquote overvalued every year by analysts. But both teams, I feel like, are on the cusp of a breakthrough. It's only a matter of time, and I feel like the recipe's in place for both of them. It's just a matter of time for when it actually happens, when they actually take off. So, Luke, it's great to have you on here.
Yeah, always good to come on here and talk some ball in the summer, especially with NHL just ended tonight or last night, and NBA is about to end. So we're really in the thick of the no sports season. I mean, we got baseball, but yeah, I think both these teams are pretty similar also with how they finished last year as well. Both teams had a dynamic quarterback. Both teams were leading their conference up until I think both teams, Miami obviously a little bit later, but A&M was the only undefeated team in the SEC and failed to make the SEC championship. And I think that both teams, now Miami lost a little bit more in terms of, losing Martinez and the number one pick, obviously, in Cam Ward. But A&M, I think, is more poised to make a run just based off returning production than Miami. But I think, Miami, obviously, we were talking about this before the show started, but Miami loaded up in the transfer portal, and they have a lot of guys that are coming back that are going to be crucial to their offense and to their defense, which is going to be a big focal point for everybody watching college football this year after what their defense did last year.
Oh yeah, the secondary was burnt toast.
It was horrible.
They did a lot to address that.
Yeah.
And we're going to unpack that when we discuss Miami. They're going to be second on the show, but today we're going to lead with Texas A&M. And so I want to cue this up by saying that these past several years, I started this channel in 2023, March of 2023, and I made a Texas A&M video that summer. Now, saying that A&M fans, don't panic. Your time is going to come soon. Trust. And that year, of course, there was the whole meltdown with Jimbo Fisher getting fired in November, and then having the one booster, fork out the money for the payout and whatnot. And then last year, I made another video that actually went insane on YouTube. Got a lot of views, got a lot of subscribers from it, got a lot of comments. It performed great. And I essentially said in that video, I love the fit of Mike Elko there.
Right.
And the culture's in place that I feel like we haven't seen in a while. Like, I was never big on Kevin Sumlin. I was never big on Jimbo Fisher's fit at Texas A&M. And you're only as good as your head coach. And so I strategically made this banner appear to say battered Aggie syndrome, because it's a term I've been hearing get thrown around a lot this year.
Right.
And now I'm right smack dab in the middle of Texas right now. There's a lot of Aggies around here, and a lot of them express very similar sentiment that they feel like the preview magazines, analysts, talk shows are hyping them up a lot this year. I think ESPN FPI had them at number 8 in the country. And A&M fans, like, normally a fan base will get juiced seeing something like that. Like, man, these guys, they're really valuing us high.
Yeah.
A&M fans do not have that feeling. They should stop putting us up here. We don't want you to expect all these great things out of us and have us fall off. And I get that. I resonate with that because it has been years of expectation and then falling short of expectation and subsequent pain for the Aggies. But when you go beneath the surface, there's reasoning for that. Head coach alignment was never there. There's never that prime head coach quarterback duo. Every great team you see has a fantastic head coach quarterback duo. A&M has not had a duo in my life. They had Johnny Manziel for a while, but it was with Kevin Sumlin, who I thought was a middle of the road coach.
Right.
And last year I thought they had the head coach with Mike Elko. I think they have that there now. But Connor Wigman did not pan out at all, like any of us thought. And I think that's more on him than on A&M's development. I think they have a fantastic staff in place. And Marcel Reed, we started to see great things out of last year.
Mm-hmm.
We saw some wonky stats, maybe more on the ground than passing. So, that will be a point of emphasis, developing his pocket presence this year. But there's something there. There's something dynamic there with Marcel Reed. And I think you may really see it go to the next level this year. But that's my take on A&M. It's like, for any of y'all that have watched Christmas Vacation out there, don't have a Clark Griswold moment where you're trying to get the lights to light, and you're fixing the plug, you're adjusting the plug, you're checking all the bulbs, and you're just about ready to give up, and then finally go for one last check. They flip the switch on inside, and the lights turn on. I feel like that could be this year or next year with A&M. So all I'm saying is, be patient, let it happen, and don't give up before the train leaves the station.
Well, and I'll also say, in terms of the battered Aggie syndrome, it doesn't just start with football and end with football. They were ranked number 1 in baseball to start the year, fell short, didn't even make the postseason. We're seeded number 1 in softball, and we're the first number 1 seed ever to not get out of their own regional. Their basketball team consistently falls short in March. And so I think if you're an A&M fan, it's just like I think what the comments I saw from their fan base was, how much more can we take, and how much more are the sports gods going to make us take? And I think that I agree with you in terms of they're on the up and up. We both kind of were surprised, but not too surprised by A&M's start last year. Obviously, Notre Dame was a tough game, but that Notre Dame team, ended up making the national championship. So you can't really fault Mike Elko there. I also agreed with you that Elko was a great fit, offensively minded coach, but runs a tight ship, and he's going to do things his way. And I think when you go to a school like Texas A&M where the boosters are so prevalent and the money is just, there's so much of it, and the resources they're just so deep, that you need a coach that's going to be able to lock in from all the distractions. And I really do feel like after last year, I know you said A&M fan, you're in Texas, obviously, and you said A&M fans are like, please stop hyping us up. But I really do think that a lot of what was shown by Elko and his staff and his team was very positive. And ESPN, FPI, and all the analysts out there have a great reason to put them high up. And, Marcel Reed's pocket presence, it will develop. But, you don't want to make him into something that he's not either. If he's successful on the ground, do what works. If it's not broke, don't fix it. But yes, he is going to need to be able to make the throws when it matters. And there was a lot of unknowns with him last year, not a lot of film on him. Now every team's got 7, 8, 9 games of film on him. And so defenses will play him differently than they did last year. But I agree with you in terms of, I think the Christmas Vacation analysis was perfect. Just when everybody's going to start running away from A&M, they always seem to draw their fans back in, right?
And mind you, like, building off of that, like I wanted to do the show this week for a reason. Like, I was doing a lot of reflecting on A&M just over the weekend. Like, they're on my mind a lot, and I was just going back and forth with myself because for a while, like, I was really subscribed to that mindset of, man, these guys are cursed. Because, like you said, it's not just football.
Right.
We saw it with basketball. I had them going to the Sweet 16. They couldn't beat Michigan. They were up by 9 in the second half. Fell apart.
Yeah.
The baseball season was a tragedy. The way that softball ended was a tragedy. And so, like you're saying, these A&M fans are like, when is enough enough? But when you look at last season, like, I know it's easy to look at the end result, and say, missed the playoffs again. When is it going to end? When are we going to take the next step? When are we going to stop fielding these talented teams and falling short? But when you really examine last season, when I made that video back in the summer last year, I said, A&M will be at this stage of the game. I expect A&M to be in the hunt for a playoff spot.
Right.
It's not realistic with a first-year head coach
Right.
to think that you're going to be there. You're going to be on the same playing field with a Texas, because Texas is way ahead of schedule.
Yeah.
Than A&M, and so you get Ohio State is, Oregon is. You can't compare yourself to those teams. Like A&M's building there.
Right.
They're not there yet. It took Texas years to build this machine that they have. Like I feel like A&M right now is where Texas was in like 2022.
Yeah.
But just because they have not reached that watermark yet does not mean that's not coming. That Notre Dame game, I'm happy you brought that up, because I was pissed off after that game, because I picked A&M to win. The game was in College Station. I was like, hell yeah, Notre Dame doesn't win these games. And Notre Dame went in there and they took their lunch money. But we saw who Notre Dame was later on. We saw the animal that team has developed into. And
right.
They lost to a damn good football team, number one. And number two, Connor Wegman was not the fit.
Right.
Played with Marcel Reed.
That game would have gone differently.
Maybe there's a different result. They had the misfortune of playing in what I believe is two of the hardest environments, two of the most challenging environments to play in the SEC, in South Carolina, Williams-Brice, and Jordan-Hare, and Auburn. And those were two teams that were starting to figure it out late in the season last year. They just played them at the wrong time.
Yeah.
And then, bang, you got A&M. Like I said, they were in contention on week 14 last year.
Right.
Thanksgiving weekend. Whoever won A&M in Texas went to the SEC championship to play Georgia.
Right.
They were there, but we all knew they weren't going to be Texas. And it is. They just weren't there yet. You could tell it after the first two drives, like they're not on the same playing field as these guys yet, but they're going to get there. And you look at this roster. I want to talk about that here for a minute. There's some dogs. Of course, we talk about Marcel Reed at length here, but I want to shed some light on Le'Veon Moss.
Oh yeah.
Last year, he was among the cream de la cream of running backs in a year that was stacked with running backs.
He was great as a freshman too.
Oh my God! Like there's no better guy to follow Devon Achane than Le'Veon Moss. A&M's had some dog running backs these past couple of years. And he's just another example. Getting Mario Kramer from Mississippi State. A&M went into that wallet and got some guys from the transfer portal. Reuben Owens.
Yeah.
Moss's backup. I think that could be a two-headed monster. And then you're pairing that with Marcel Reed. This could be like a Baltimore Ravens type attack that you're looking at this year, where, if, like you said, you lean into Marcel Reed's strengths, and you want him naturally as a quarterback, like kind of like Lamar. You want to see him on some weight, and you want to see him have a bit more of a pocket presence.
Yeah,
don't let that take away from who he is, because he is terrifying on his legs.
Seriously,
and so.
And I'd like to point out too with this A&M offense, as I'm not sure if you mentioned Casey's Concepcion, but he was awesome at NC State. NC State had a really disappointing year last year, but he was one of the few bright spots on that team. And also, you look at their offensive line, not a single transfer piece on that offensive line, projected starters as of now, but only one guy is a junior, and everybody else is either a redshirt. There is one transfer, my bad, but there is everybody else is an upperclassman.
That's huge for chemistry's sake.
Seriously,
chemistry on the offensive line. It's something I talk about a lot on this channel. If you have guys that know each other, they understand each other, they know how to communicate, and there's just that synergy on both lines. It's massive. They understand the quarterback.
Yeah.
His wants and needs, his patterns. It's huge. And so having no transfers, having guys that have been on that line with each other for several years, these are all little key ingredients here for A&M that when you see them really start to pop off this year,
just know
this is the reason why.
And Reed's a difficult quarterback to block for too, because you never know when he's out of the pocket or if he's beyond the line of scrimmage or if he's throwing the ball or making some magic happen. And so having a guy, like you said, guys that communicate with each other and know each other else, like the offensive line, you can't have 5 guys playing individually. To have a good offensive line, you need 5 guys that are all on the same page and all understand what the overall game plan is.
Oh yeah, it's all togetherness. It's all synergy. It's all that alignment on both lines. It's crucial. It's got to be coached up well. And then you look at A&M's defense here. That there's a couple transfers and a couple guys that have stayed that I'm expecting big seasons out of. TJ Searcy, the defensive end, the edge rusher from Florida. That's huge. I was not expecting Florida to lose him.
Yeah.
A&M hit a home run getting a guy like him. He could have like a Walter Nolan impact.
Seriously.
Like he had at Ole Miss. And then Scooby Williams coming back.
Yeah.
We have a big year this year. Bryce Anderson, the safety. I could expect a big year out of him as well. And so A&M's defense, and that's been a strong point these past several years. I expect it to look pretty consistent this year.
Yeah. I mean, it's also, they're deep too. They got the Georgia transfer, Julian Humphrey. Again, this is just a projected depth chart as of now, and it's the middle of June, so things are obviously going to change going into fall camp and whatnot. He's projected to be a backup cornerback right now. They still have Des Ricks, who was a 5-star coming out of high school. His recruitment was very competitive between a lot of SEC schools, and I think they're just going to be consistent. Like you said, consistent's the best word. You know what you're going to get with most of these guys. Now I'll say A&M at times their defense looks like a monster, and then at times it seemed like they were unable to make adjustments. Specifically at South Carolina last year. So I'm still interested before I give them like top 5 defense in the country, top 5 defense in the SEC notion. I'm going to wait and see for the results first. And we'll see that very quickly in week 3 against Notre Dame. So
it was there. Like you saw it there against Notre Dame last year. You saw it there against Florida last year. Like you saw it there against Missouri last year. Like there are several games.
Right.
Like, yeah, this defense is like that.
Mm-hmm.
But it just started to erode late in the season.
They lost momentum.
They lost momentum. Lenore Sellers happened.
Yeah.
You know, that he happens. Yeah. I mean, he's one of those guys, like you just run into a wall.
Yeah.
And they just lost momentum. They lost their way. They lost their identity. It happens to units sometimes.
Right.
But I think adding a guy like Searcy, like sometimes it's just that little micro adjustment. It's just that little course correction that can mean the world. Like I said, Walter Nolan, perfect comparison. You saw him get added on to that Ole Miss defense, and it was just immediately looked different.
And maybe they get some contribution from Samuel and Pimba too. He's not projected to be super high up in their roster right now, but he's a talented guy. He came from Georgia. Georgia's produced a lot of good defensive linemen in recent years, so there's no telling if he can contribute some too as well.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of guys like you, and that's what's so interesting about this time of year too, is like right now we're just in 7-on-7 time.
Yeah,
you go to these practices. It's when I was working with BAM a couple years ago, it's just 7-on-7s right now. Coaches aren't even allowed to be down there.
Yeah,
like it's player led practices, and then we go on a little break at the end of this month.
Yeah,
come back. You take classes in July, continue 7s a little bit, and then when you come back from that break in July, it's time to hit it. It's fall camp, and that's when you're going to see. And I'm interested to watch A&M's depth chart in particular, because I think that you could see some guys rise and fall, and it's going to be interesting because it's a very deep team.
Yeah,
they spent a lot of money on this team. They've done a great job recruiting, and now it's time to see who Mike Elko and the staff favor going into the fall. But just one last thing about A&M before we transition into Miami. It's all vision. It's all culture. And sometimes that's like the invisible component. It's hard to see. And you tell it to a fan base and they're like, Oh, pish posh, oh bullshit, culture, this and that. Seriously, just wait for it to happen. Because one thing about Jimbo Fisher, and I had a lot of respect for him. I mean, I still do. Not like I don't. He's a great coach. I mean,
Yeah.
he won a natty at Florida State. He was a great fit there.
Mm-hmm.
He was not a great fit at A&M because there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of expectations there. And there's a lot of sideshow. Like there are some fan bases that are just loud. Like A&M fans just they chirp. They're loud. They have a presence. Auburn's the same way. Like you've got to be wired a certain way to coach at Auburn because they're desperate. They want to win now, and their fans they talk.
Right.
So you got to be ready for that. Jimbo Fisher fed off of the drama.
Yeah, 100%.
It was a very combustible situation. Now with Mike Elko's a guy who's laser focused. Mike Elko's a guy who cares about nothing but getting this organization on the right track and blocks out the noise. I just think he's perfect for it.
Well, and I'll say this about Jimbo as well. He deservingly so had an ego. I mean, his results spoke for themselves, and A&M's boosters and fan base, I feel like they've got an ego too, and an ego is a good thing in football. Like that, it's like expectations. They expected more than what they got, and so it was just kind of a collision right there, and you could see it building from the moment where he left Florida State and had all the drama that followed him there, and then the drama just never went away, and it was just really a circus act. That whole situation, that whole
debacle.
Yeah, just I don't even know how to describe it. But, yeah, seriously,
like kerfuffle. That's and you could see the tension building from a mile away. He's very loud, outgoing, boisterous, and A&M's the same as a program. It wasn't going to match. You got a quieter guy in Elko now, a more about his business guy like Elko, and I think that the future's bright for A&M. I know it was a very disappointing sports year. It seemed like every team built the fan base up, got them excited, all to just down. And I know it hurts. I'm not going to say it doesn't, but A&M fans just trust there's bright things on the horizon, and I can say the same about these Miami Hurricanes here. And so, like that Rising Canes.
Yeah, I did. I saw. I like it. I like it. Yeah. You've been in Texas too long.
I gotta have some fun. We gotta drum up something in this season. And so this is an interesting team this year. This is one of those wild card teams. Like I can see this really going one way or the other. Of course, last year was the season that I feel like Miami really burst onto the scene last year. And it's all perception. There's a lot of Miami haters out there. There's a lot of people who want to see this program do bad. And they're going to be the first ones to point it out and say, you just missed the playoffs. You lost to Syracuse. And they have a point. I mean, I had Miami in my playoff last year. I had a lot of expectations for them given their timing, their roster. It seemed right. It's like everything was coming together at the right time. So I was slightly disappointed they just missed the playoffs last year. But when you look at what Miami did last year compared to these past 10 years, with the exception of 2017, just being able to win double-digit games was huge for that team. It was groundbreaking. It was a step in the right direction. I want to see them do more, having a Heisman caliber quarterback. But what they did was still a huge accomplishment and something to build off of this year. And the first thing that I'm going to hear people say when we talk about Miami too is, they lost a lot of guys.
Yeah.
They lost Cam Ward. They lost Damian Martinez. They lost Xavier Restrepo. They lost Elijah Arroyo.
Isaiah Horton
to Alabama. You lost guys to other schools and the NFL. There's a drop-off. And I know that. I acknowledge that. But Miami's biggest liability last year was their secondary. You cannot play like that and win football games week in and week out, especially when you don't have a freak like Cam Ward there anymore. Cam Ward, I don't think people understand how good Cam Ward is. He's going to go to Tennessee this year. I'm telling you right now, he's going to win Rookie of the Year. Tennessee could be a playoff team. He is like that.
He filled a lot of holes for Miami.
Oh, he was the reason why they won like half these games last year. Like you look at so many of them. Like you look at the Cal game, you look at the Virginia Tech game that we watched together in Alabama.
Yeah,
it was incredible. And now, I mean, you have Carson Beck, who I get shit on a lot. I mean, I'll talk about him in a minute. It's not Cam Ward, but still very serviceable. But
yeah.
I like the notion of Carson Beck being paired with this enhanced secondary that Miami has, because this is a smart staff. They knew how bad that secondary was last year, and they knew the unfortunate positions that it put them in a lot of times last year. That's why they went out and got Jacoby Thomas. It's why they went out and got Zechariah Poyser. It's why they went out and got Xavier Lucas.
Mm-hmm.
They know that they had to make adjustments. And they did. This is a greatly enhanced secondary. And I think it's going to perform a lot better. I think they're going to be able to defend the deep ball a lot better. They'll be able to defend intermediate a lot better. They won't be allowing as many explosive plays. And the big topic, as always, is going to be Carson Beck. Because it's going to be a huge story this year.
Yeah.
Because last year at this time, he was projected to be the first quarterback off the board at this time last year. Just let that marinate. He went back for another year. Nobody expected that. But and a lot of people blame Georgia's struggles on offense last year, because even though they won the SEC championship, they were a very imperfect team and had a lot of struggles on offense. And yeah, he wasn't great. Made a lot of turnovers, to a lot of interceptions, was not consistent. But there were a lot of components of Georgia's offense that were not there. Their running back game was probably the most disappointing that I've seen under Kirby Smart since the early years. The receiving core is very mid.
They dropped a lot of balls.
Outside of Tate Ratledge was not good at all.
Yeah.
It was, on the offensive side of the ball, it was very disappointing. It was not just Carson Beck.
Yeah.
But I don't think he was a fit there either. I think guys buy more into Gunnar Stockton than they do Carson Beck. I think that got into his head after a while, and it wasn't a fit. I think that a program like Miami matches Carson Beck's personality a lot more. I just think that he's going to vibe more with the vibe in the 305, and at that program, what it's about. I think he's more of a Miami guy than he is a Georgia guy. I don't think he was ever a Georgia guy. He screams South Florida to me. I think it's going to be a fantastic match. And also right now, I think it was Josh Pate I listened to this morning saying it. The whole personal life thing. And I don't like to bring this stuff up usually. But a lot with what he's dealing with in his personal life right now, I think is going to, a lot of people are saying, oh, it's going to cripple him. It's going to be on his mind. I think he's going to be more football focused and football oriented than ever now. And so I'm not going to say whether he's going to have a breakout year or not this year, but I think that the potential's there.
So with Miami, first of all, I'll add something to the Carson Beck thing. He is coming off of an injury, which I'm interested to see how he looks early on in the regular season. And then with Miami, I think you might be a little bit more positive with them than I am overall. And to me, it's Clemson clear cut in the ACC as the best team. And then there's this group below below Clemson, and it's like Miami, it's Louisville, SMU, Georgia Tech. And so I'm interested to see who that second team is in the ACC. Obviously, Miami has a great shot too. For all the reasons you mentioned, they got better on defense. Mario Cristobal has been doing interviews in the offseason where he's mentioning defense. And it's interesting because Cristobal was always a defensive-minded coach. And so to see him have a team where his offense was so good and they couldn't even get into the playoffs or the ACC championship was pretty shocking to me. And I look at Miami's schedule. A couple games that I think really stand out is Notre Dame week 1. We mentioned that. We talked about that last episode. And then they play Florida at home. And that's a Florida team that, they're hungry. You talk about desperate. That's a desperate program. And they just got the shit kicked out of them by Miami opening week last year. So they're going to be revenge-oriented. And then they do play a couple of those teams in the second tier of they play Louisville, they play SMU, and they even play a Syracuse team that I'm very high on. So I think with Miami's schedule, they avoid Clemson, but there's a lot of traps on that schedule. And, I briefly want to talk about Mark Fletcher as well. Mark Fletcher has consistently been one of my favorite running backs. You talked about Le'Veon Moss at A&M. I think Fletcher is another one of those guys that Moss kind of had his breakout last year. Fletcher was stuck behind Martinez, but even when he got a lot of reps, he was productive. And I think Fletcher is going to be maybe the key piece to that Miami offense, especially with Beck, because Beck's not going to do what Cam Ward did last year, where he can throw for 500 yards and 6 touchdowns and make it look easy. Miami this year is going to have to use the run game to open up the pass game.
No, and I want to make that clear too to the Miami fan base. You don't have Cam Ward anymore.
Yeah,
and Carson Beck is not Cam Ward. There was the common belief last year at this time, which is crazy, was that he is better than Cam Ward. I'll be honest, I never bought into that. I really liked Cam Ward. I don't know if I had him at number 1 at this time last year or not, but I always really liked Cam Ward.
Yeah,
but Carson Beck was never Cam Ward. He's not Cam Ward, so you can't have Cam Ward like expectations. That receiving core also isn't the same. It's going to be a very different looking Miami team this year. I think it's going to be a bit more ground and pound. It's going to be a bit more physical than it was last year. It's not going to be the same kind of spread offense like you were seeing last year, and you're getting well over 300 passing yards every game. It's not going to be that style of offense. But I think that you will be seeing a team that can gross maybe over 200 rushing yards per game. Yeah. I think you can expect that and balance that out with maybe 230, 250 in the air. That's what you're going to be seeing a lot more of this year in lower scoring games. Not as many 42-38s. I think you're going to see more 27-24s this year, 23-20s this year from Miami. And just building off of expectations, like you were saying, I think that this is a team that has a high ceiling and can pop off. And there's a lot of potential there, but I also do want to address the reality of the situation here.
Yeah.
And I do completely agree with you that Clemson is the true blue outlier in this conference. Like, Clemson is up here.
Yeah.
Clemson has an 81% returning production. Clemson is an SEC Big Ten caliber team in the ACC.
Yeah.
They're I think they're, I don't think people understand the extent to which Clemson's going to dominate. I'm close to expecting them to be undefeated in the ACC. There's maybe that one trap game, but they're clearly better than everybody in that conference right now. And Miami is in that group with your Louisvilles, with your SMUs, with your Georgia Techs. I actually think Georgia Tech might be better than Miami.
I agree.
Georgia Tech, I think I have them at second in the ACC. And we'll save that for another episode when we talk about our ACC expectations.
Yeah.
But Miami's got some landmines on that schedule this year. Just having Notre Dame and Florida early on is huge. I think there's a chance they lose both those games. I think they can win both of them. I think they can lose both of them.
Yeah.
And if they do, you could be staring down the gun barrel this season at kind of a gauntlet of these landmine games. Like you're saying, you got SMU on the schedule. You got Syracuse, who beat them last year, on the schedule.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be tough for Miami to get into a position where they're going to make a playoff run. I have the same kind of forecast I had for A&M last year.
Yeah.
Maybe in the hunt. I think they could be alive towards the end of November. But realistically, if you want to be an ACC team and make the college football playoff, the way that's structured right now, the way that the criteria is, you've got to win 11 games. if you have a tough schedule, they may make an exception for Miami having Notre Dame and Florida. So
Yeah,
10-2 might work for them.
I agree.
But ideally, it's got to be 11-1 or 12-0. And realistically, I don't see them doing that this year. So I think they're going to need things to go their way this year. You're going to have to win at least one of those Florida Notre Dame games. It's going to be tough starting off with that early on, realistically. But this is a very talented team that's capable of doing that. They can. I'm not saying they can't, but realistically, seeing it unfold, the chances don't look great.
Well, and I think the reason why you group both of these teams together to talk about, even though I think we both are on the same page that A&M is better than Miami, but
Yes.
but both of these teams are kind of being overlooked in the preseason conference polls in a way. You know, maybe Miami a little bit more than A&M, but both of these teams could show out and shock people, like you said. And so I think these are kind of like the wild cards of their conferences. You really never know what you're going to get with either of these programs. And I feel like maybe A&M has a little bit more of a momentum swing than Miami after the way Miami ended last year. But at the same time, Miami was able to expose their flaws and how to make their program better by those mistakes. So I really think that while you say Georgia Tech, I agree with Georgia Tech being better than them. I think I have Miami probably fifth in the conference right now, but with the high ceiling that they have, I mean, they could easily be playing in Charlotte at the end of the year.
It can happen. Miami fans, like, before you get angry at us, like,
Yeah.
we're saying, it can happen. Like, I can see Carson Beck having a complete reset at the U and just having a get back year that propels him back into being a first round candidate once again. Like, that can very well happen. But Miami, I think, is having the same kind of identity shift that USC had last year, going from being no defense and aerial, Caleb Williams, fast receivers, great route runners, being explosive on offense, but no defense, to a little bit more buttoned up on the defensive side of the ball, more reliance on the run game, being physical on both sides of the ball. A quarterback who's not as flashy. Carson Beck's not as flashy of a player as Cam Ward is. Not as dynamic of a quarterback. But in the right system here, could be great with checkdowns. Could be great bouncing that run game out. And could turn up the dial with the deep ball after a while. But a little bit more of a balanced attack than we saw last year. I think that's the vision for Miami this year. But it'll be very interesting to see how it all pans out, because both of these teams are teams that people have a lot to say about. Like, they're two very polarizing teams.
Mm-hmm.
And when they fall, people always have something to say. I told you so. Yeah, A&M will never be shit. Miami will never be shit. Like, everybody's always armed with those rocks and arrows at the end of the season when they fall short. But we just want to explain here what, like, the artillery that both of these teams are going into the season with, and what they're going up against. Like, at the end of the day, I think A&M is in a similar spot, fringe playoff team. With their schedule, I think that a playoff appearance is a little more realistic for A&M than it is Miami. But Miami has the potential to have everything in place. But there's the top of the ACC is a little bit cloudy. Like, you got Clemson and then those other teams in the fringe there below Clemson. So it could be Miami that plays them in Charlotte. It could be Georgia Tech. It could be SMU. It could be Louisville. But it's going to be interesting to see how all this unfolds for two teams that are really trying to build something. I think Cristobal's got a great vision. I think Elko's got a great vision. And my message to both fan bases is just be patient. Just be patient. Block out the outside noise. And like Big Time Tommy says, fuck all the haters. Fuck all the haters. They hate you because they hate themselves.
Yeah. Well, both these fan bases are are desperate too. So, desperation sometimes makes people do things that they normally wouldn't do, and don't say things that they normally wouldn't say. But yeah, I think A&M, they can afford a few more slip ups than Miami can, and I think, I remember us talking about it last year with the new playoff format. Every season's going to be a marathon now. It's not going to be a sprint. One loss isn't going to lose you your season in the SEC or the Big Ten. One slip up for Miami, it could end their season. So I'm with you on the fact that I think A&M's schedule gives them a better chance. In this day and age, a harder schedule actually gives you a better chance to make the playoffs than a cupcake schedule,
which I kind of like.
Yeah,
because I think there does need to be, like, I've always viewed it like a test. The SEC and the Big Ten are taking Calc 2, Calc 3 exams.
Yeah.
Whereas the ACC is more like Mass Comm.
Yeah.
It's not the same thing. And I know there's the SEC Big Ten comparison, and that actually is going to be an episode in the future here. I'll probably have you on for that one. Just that'll be a fun little discussion.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to pin those two against each other. I'm going to say they're on the same playing field. SEC and Big Ten. It's both. It's a gauntlet for both. The Big 12. There's a lot of competition there, but the ACC outside of Clemson and the fringe, it's a lot easier to stack up on some wins. But to build on what you were saying, the playoff looks more favorable for Clemson because, like, I think their team is better than Miami. I think head to head, I would take A&M.
Yeah,
I think that they're a better structured team right now, and they can afford to lose those games. Miami can't afford to lose these. Like, A&M can drop a couple and be all right this year. They can drop 2, maybe even 3, and be all right. Miami at the most 2. And so that puts more pressure on that program too. It's a better situation. It's a more relaxed situation for A&M.
I agree. And hey, one last thing on Miami real fast. They got USF week 3 too. And I'm not going to say that USF is a sleeper team, but USF is another program. It's an in-state program, and it's probably a bunch of guys that didn't get offers from Miami. So, and they did compete with them for a half last year. So, and I'm not getting off the Byron Brown train yet. So, I'm riding that thing till it crashes, dude.
That guy's got some magic. He can do one thing. He can run.
I'm staying on that train until it crashes and burns. It almost killed me last year, but
2 years in a row, getting a damn heart attack with Alabama. We had no answer for the fucking guy. It was unbelievable.
Yeah,
but you get those in-state guys, like they probably played with a lot of these guys that are on Miami in high school. Number one, and there's that resentment there of not getting recruited by Miami, having to settle for South Florida, and they're ready to take it out on them. And so just that little extra layer of resentment always goes a long way. I think that'll be a fun game to watch.
Agree.
Well, it was a pleasure having you on here as always, Luke. Breaking down these two teams. We're going to be doing this weekly on Wednesdays now. And so we'll be talking about different teams every week. Next week will be the exception. There will not be a show next week since I will be in DFW airport at this time. I have to fly back to New York. The following week there will be a show. 4th of July is on Friday, so there will be a Wednesday show. Probably just won't be much on the weekend, but there will be a Wednesday show. And then we'll be having it for the foreseeable future. And each show gets more exciting as we get closer and closer to the season. So this is just the beginning.
And we'll have a lot more of a clear picture on these teams as it starts getting closer to the fall. And we'll bring a lot more a lot of other interesting topics to the show as well. So I'm excited, man. I do an Alabama football countdown every day, and we're at 74 days till then. So it's about 67 days till week 0.
Yeah, 60 exactly, because we start the Saturday after in Tallahassee, and so the week before we have Kansas State and it's Kansas State and Iowa State.
That's right.
The snow game last year is in or no, was it the snow game the year before is in Ireland. Two interesting teams to play in Ireland, but I'm excited for that one.
We'll see. I know I expect Kansas State to have the majority of the crowd over Iowa State, just based off fan base.
I like going off topic, and I like this to end the show, a little bit of banter here.
Right.
So a little bit of story time. The Big 12 championship was in Arlington. I was working with the Cowboys at the time, at AT&T Stadium, and so we get passes to go to the game, and I'll be completely transparent. What a shitty showing that was.
Yeah.
I mean, both fan bases, like nobody, I think the number is like 23,000 or something there, and that place holds damn near 80.
Yeah.
We walked in, my buddy the Quank and I walk in, and we're meeting my boy Luke there, another Luke here, and we're expected to be like this hype crowd. Like, man, I know it's only noon or 11 here, but like we're expected to be this, like, these people are going to be into it, like it's to be electric.
Yeah.
We walk in,
there's nobody.
It was like a Marlins game. We're like, what the fuck? What? And Arizona State outnumbered Iowa State, which is crazy because comparatively speaking, Iowa State's closer. Like Ames is closer to here than Tempe is.
Yeah.
And I was like, these people just did not travel. And I was expecting them to, because I know they're a passionate fan base. And this is no shade at either of those fan bases, but I was kind of surprised. Like they didn't really travel.
Yeah. Well, hey, Marlins catching a stray on the era, so
Marlins catch a stray everywhere, man. I feel bad, but they got to get their shit together.
They said somebody, I saw the last thing real quick. I saw somebody said on Twitter, they said the Marlins would trade any of their best players for a bunch of athletic 17-year-olds.
I mean, really, at this point, it's probably an upgrade. Like you probably got some 4 or 5 stars, playing up the road here in South Lake High School and Arlington or Highland Park that are ready to go.
Anything will help the Miami Marlins. If you've listened to one thing on this show, just know anything will help the Miami Marlins.
They're probably watching LSU to Arkansas tonight, and they're like salivating. They're like, please, like, give us one of these fucking like bag right now. Like, just come play for us.
That's hilarious.
But it was great having you on as always. 2 weeks we'll be back here. But Luke Close, thanks for coming on. And for now, peace out.